as reporters of the club that we're in this cycle of approaching payday, and occasionally it's okay. It's actually more newsworthy when they aren't paid, which is disgusting. But if you can put yourselves in the shoes of the people that it directly impacts, that you've got this 4 week cycle of, is the money coming in? What, do I need to rearrange when my direct debits are going out? Who do I need to speak? It's just absolutely disgusting. And
Hello and welcome to the latest edition of All Wednesday. We're back with Alex Miller this week, who was at a pretty thrilling game at Birmingham City the other day. Me and you both referred to it as a loss by accident in our post-match stuff. It did kind of feel that way, didn't it? But also felt so much better than a loss at the same time.
yeah, it was the nature of the so close to doing something really, really, really cool. And they still did that. I think there's no getting away from the situation that Sheffield Wednesday are in. And what's been heartening is that everyone seems to understand that. And yeah, look, it's we've both written and spoken a lot about every point that they pick up this season is an impressive one. With the situation, and especially what they've been told 24 hours earlier that they weren't getting paid again. Um, and I think without intrinsic knowledge of the other 91 changing rooms in the football pyramid, my guess would be that quite a few probably wouldn't go in with the same gumption and desperation to pick up points that Wednesdays did on Tuesday night. And yeah, it was a fun night. If the ending was a little bit disappointing.
Yeah, I mean, I think it's one of those games where I think Wednesday's possession was like 29%, something like that. But they just ran into the ground, didn't they? Like to a man, like you mentioned it in a sort of a couple of post game things with other matches of people like walking wounded, going off the pitch and that kind of thing. But it feels like that's it now, isn't it? Like every player is just going to empty the tank at every possible opportunity, and no matter what happens, like they deserve a lot of credit for that because they've been left in the dark. They've been, unpaid. They've just been sort of hung out to dry by the entire situation that's going off the field, and they're just getting on with it, aren't they?
Yeah, and not just there's different tiers to what getting on with it looks like.
Mm.
Um, and I've got to say, if you my match ratings from Tuesday night were as high as I've given to any Wednesday side ever. Um,
It wasn't all tens like Peterborough, surely?
no, that will remain out on its own, I think. Um, but a lot of nines there. I think two sevens with the lowest rating. And like I say, I've just been absolutely blown away by how they've gone about things. I think it's worth saying, that it isn't sustainable, or you wouldn't
Mm.
think it would be sustainable. And who knows, that they've surpassed my expectations as someone from the outside looking in terms of how long they could retain an intensity. And given it was an away trip on a Tuesday night, straight off the back of a hard fought game on the Saturday as well. We know that Wednesday do not have the luxury of rotating players. Just made it all the more impressive. There's going to be some dog days in this season, unless something changes and Wednesday are allowed to bring in some more bodies. And the fact is that results here don't really change anything when you get to November, December, January, February, March, April, start of May. There's going to be some times where it's going to take even more um, of a cajoling, I guess, and injuries will come and go and this sort of thing. So yeah, looking at the table, there aren't many squads in the Championship that are getting more credit right now than Sheffield Wednesday, who are second bottom,
Yeah.
and rightly so.
Yeah, I had the pleasure of chatting to Barry Bannon this week, who is, obviously there's not a lot of players speaking at the moment, but Barry has done what Barry so often does and fronted up and sort of gone to speak about various different issues at the club. We all know what's going on, but one of the things that he mentioned to me was this isn't normal. Like how this group of players is reacting to this is not a normal thing. He's been in football a long time. He's 35 years old. He's been at various different clubs over the years, and I think he recognises that what's going on here it's pretty crazy. And he spoke a lot about his pride in the group of players. He was saying about what he spoke to him in the huddle before the game. I thought it was really interesting. Actually, he spoke to them about their kids. He said that a lot of them parents now. Look, they're either parents or children. I think that's probably the way that the Wednesday group is at the moment. But he was saying that like he was talking to them about how they'd want their kids to react in a situation like this, and then afterwards, he was just, yeah, he was just blown away by the application of everybody. Also, he's fine, which is good. He'll be all right for the game this weekend. But I think with Barry, we can chat about him a little bit here. We've waxed lyrical about that man many a time over the years, but he's not just like battling, is he? He's been really good. Like four goals and assists after 8 games in the championship for a man who, you know, some opposition fans and stuff have written him off and said his legs are gone, all that kind of stuff. Uh, Barry Bannon's legs are very much still there, aren't they?
There's been a bit of an unspoken joke whenever we've spoken to Baz, that I always end up speaking about, life after football, or um, things around, how Wednesday go about life beyond Barry Bannon. And I'm going to make a conscious effort not to do that next time.
Yeah, because I don't
Um,
think there's ever going to be life without him. He's just going to keep going.
well, he's going to be 48 years old, and still, dropping in to take the ball off the centre backs and then pinging one, a big crossfield diag to start another attack. He's been sensational. I think his leadership and stuff. I think we've spoken on a previous pod about what this looks like had he taken up, the opportunity to sign elsewhere. And it's unimaginable, and I can't look. You don't know, but got a pretty good idea that everything that we're saying and all the plaudits that we're giving to the Wednesday group, um, it would be a hell of a lot harder without him having, stayed on and driving the way. And it's obviously we don't have wall to wall access in terms of the stuff that's going on behind the scenes, but he's the sort of player that you can imagine players are inspired by.
Mm,
He's as I said, touched on before. He's picking up the ball in deep areas, and I think from a technical point of view, I mean, I can't speak for yourself, Joe, but I'm not qualified to pick the bones out of that. But you can see um, that he is performing a slightly different role in how he's
mm,
going about things, and I think that's quite
yeah.
interesting as well. And to have the stats that he does in terms of chance creation and key passes and all this sort of stuff in a team that, for the main part, isn't getting a lot of the ball. It tells you
Mm.
everything you need to know about his quality still being there. So yeah, if you're watching Baz, you won't get a question from me about, about what happens next time we have a press conference with you. Mind you, the next time we have a press conference with him, he could be 48, so we'll see.
Yeah, fair point. Just on so before we move on from that game, I mean Baz's ball for George Brown's goal was superb, but it was a pretty tidy finish as well, wasn't it? George Brown is doing all right for himself.
Good, strong West Yorkshire lad. That's what we like to see in the Wednesday side. Yeah, I mean, I spoke to him after the game at Portsmouth. Obviously, he scored in. That was his first championship start, and obviously played very very well. And he just comes across a really confident and grounded lad. You and I have both done interviews with youngsters in the past, and some of them, it's almost like, this is a learning experience for them, and let's just get through it with
Yeah.
some nice basic questions, and everyone walks away richer from it. Um, but with George, it was like speaking to someone that's in his third season of Championship football.
He
Really,
looks
really well
old as well,
coached.
doesn't he? Physically, like he doesn't look like an IT. Like you look at some of the lads who've come through this year, like Yisa Lau and Will Granger, and they're children and they look like children. Whereas if you told me George was 22, 23, I wouldn't bat an eyelid about it.
Well, yeah, 100%, and you can see that in the way that he plays as well.
Mm,
He's got a confidence in his body, and the physicality that he can offer. So, um, yeah, sort of like a throwback number nine-ish sort of striker, isn't
mm.
he? And two championship goals. I rather suspect if you'd rewound and dropped him where he was 18 months ago and said, this time, year and a half away, you're going to have two championship goals to your name, and you'll have a song, and all this sort of thing. He might think you're a bit bonkers, but if there are silver linings to this Chancery mess that Sheffield Wednesday are in, George Brown and Ernie Weaver are certainly two of them.
Yeah, I was going to talk about Ernie next. So we need to take the Twitter password off you for the Wednesday Owls account because she's putting song lyrics out there and stuff, going rogue. But no, Ernie's he's getting a lot of praise and he's getting a lot of credit for good reason, isn't he? Because he has been, I mean, he sounds like a Victorian footballer and he plays like one as well sometimes because he will literally throw himself in front of anything. And he's just been really good at everything he's done, hasn't he?
He's been really good, with some of the players. It's sort of caveated with, he shouldn't have been exposed to this, and there are mistakes in there. The sort of hairy little moments, and Harry Amos with the first goal on Tuesday night, for example, it just wasn't a strong enough tackle, and he'll learn
Yeah.
from that. And
As Barry Bannon let him know afterwards.
yeah, yeah. But look, and by the way, Harry Amos looks a really quality Championship
Yeah,
player, and
very,
he's
very much
obviously
so.
being the benefit of the setup at Manchester United and blah blah blah. But um, Ernie sort of just looks good, like without a
Mm,
without a caveat, and that it's not been faultless, but he's everything that a fan wants to see from a centre half. He's throwing
mm,
himself at balls. He's making tackles and celebrating with the away end, and sort of buying into everything that it is to play for a big club. And he just looks like he's really enjoying himself, and it's just impressive because with both of those lads in particular, but there are of course others. You can sink or swim
mm.
in an environment like this, and you can go, "Oh, I'm not ready for this," the opportunity passes you by. If there was a takeover tomorrow and five free agents came through the door, those two would still be very much a part of the squad, and so they're taking their chance. And speaking to Henrik after the game, he mentioned that the environment that they've been put in is good for them because of the attitude of the players around them,
Yeah,
both
yeah,
on the pitch and off it. And if it was a miserable place to be and operate, and everyone was looking out for themselves and this sort of thing, it would make life very difficult. But everyone's in it together, and credit to Henrik, to Barry, to all the senior players, for going at it with and building the right sort of place for them to thrive in, because they're certainly doing that. It's really fun to watch them both play,
yeah.
and God knows we need bits and bobs of those little stories to keep us going, don't we?
Yeah, just a little bit. With Erne, I did a story today, which is will be no surprise to anybody. Premier League clubs watching him. That's what happens when an 18-year-old makes this kind of impact. I think with Ernie, and to be honest, with George, with so many others, in a normally run football club, a player comes into the first team and performs like this, they have a new contract in front of them immediately. With improved terms, with longer contract length on it. Wednesday aren't in a position to do that, and not just in terms of the contract lengths and the difficulties that come with sort of re-signing young players that are increasingly in demand. Wednesday just can't do it. Like they're in a position at the moment where they have to get full ratification from the EFL to do anything. I mean, I did a story recently about that even applies to the kids, like the scholars. That the idea of getting a pro contract is difficult. And you look at people like Will Granger, Issa Allow, turning 17 soon. That's a pro contract. Wednesday can't do it. That they have to get special permission to do that. And when you look at these silver linings that you speak of, that's a real concern, isn't it? Because at least people like Ernie. I mean, Ernie's got this year and a year option, but you wouldn't see him. You wouldn't see past him being sold in Jan, would you? Just given what we've seen recently with Anthony Masaba, with Jedi Gassama, a couple of lads from the academy. That there's probably a rightful concern, isn't there, about this sort of next generation and them getting sort of cherry picked by different clubs who benefit from Wednesday's difficulties.
Yeah, I think so. And look, we've seen this before that it's almost like a separate issue because of the situation that Wednesday have. I was going to say Wednesday have put themselves in, but one man in particular has put Wednesday in. That the system is set up wrong.
Yeah,
We saw with the two lads that went to Brentford a few years ago, and we've certainly seen it at other clubs. And um, but yeah, with Ernie having made such a strong step up, um, it would feel particularly sore, and because of the situation probably outstripping Asazia Regidi and Liam Shaw, for example, and that really did stick in the gums of everyone involved at Wednesday. And yeah, I mean, you'd hope there would be a corridor for special dispensation along those lines. That a
mm,
contract for those two you wouldn't think would move the needle an awful lot in terms of where Wednesday are, but the rules and regs are the rules and regs. And yeah, to lose those two, I think looking at January, UI, everybody else seemingly is not hearing too positive noises, around any takeover. So looking, you do need to sort of keep half an eye, quarter of an eye on January and what might happen there. We know that there's two very saleable assets and with clubs interested in Pierce Charles and Bailey Cadamartri. And as things go on, you'd certainly put Ernie, not necessarily in that bracket. He's a good few dozen appearances behind that, but in terms of potential and stuff, if players do need to be sold down the line, fact is, he's a player that they can get money for.
yeah,
So yeah, in terms of headaches, that one's perhaps a little bit down the road, but it's sort of growing.
yeah, headache nonetheless. We've got a few minutes left before we wrap up, but we should probably talk about this thing. I mean, we've spoken about it so much in the past. It feels like it's a lot of it's old ground, but Sheffield Wednesday haven't been paid again. The players haven't been paid. Well, the senior players haven't been paid. From our understanding, the 21s, the academy kids, they've got their money. The staff, they have got a portion of their money. There doesn't seem to be any end in sight here, does there?
Nope, nope. And as we've said on other shows, the hope would be that somewhere buried in the background, there's work going on to get something done to take this club off Dave Chansiri. But as things stand right here, right now, um, it's not anything that I'm hearing. Um, I'm sure you would have told me if there was something exciting your end. So yeah, just this perennial spiral of nonsense, and it's a frustration as reporters of the club that we're in this cycle of approaching payday, and occasionally it's okay. It's actually more newsworthy when they aren't paid,
Mm,
which is disgusting. But if you can put yourselves in the shoes of the people that it directly impacts, that you've got this 4-week cycle of, is the money coming in? What, do I need to rearrange when my direct debits are going out? Who do I need to speak? It's just absolutely disgusting, and we cannot be thrown into a position, anyone involved, where this becomes the norm, and it's desensitized.
mm,
Um, looking behind the curtain a little bit, the stories that we put out on the news, that they weren't going to be paid, or they were going to be paid in part. The page views on that were comparatively very small to previous months,
mm.
because people are looking. You'd imagine, people are looking at it and going, "Oh, it's happened
Yeah,
again."
here we are again.
Um,
Yeah,
and for any, I mean, we've done 18 minutes of chat on Sheffield Wednesday, and players not being paid, and staff behind the scenes only getting a portion of it. We didn't speak about it for 18 minutes.
yeah.
It's
Been there,
just the
done
way,
that.
it's it's horrific.
Yeah,
Um,
certainly is.
and yeah, he can't keep getting away with this. But we are where we are, and things need to play out, I think.
Yeah. Well, that's all we can do now. Innit? Just wait. Just hope that at some point somebody does something to take it off him if that's what it takes. Um, but yeah, luckily the players and the manager and the staff are all an absolute credit to the football club. So we'll keep talking about that. And that's it for this week. We'll join for more brevity next time around. Thanks for joining us. Cheers.